for some background noise because I am recording during the day. And my little kitty cat is running all around my living room playing. It is his nap time, so I'm hoping he falls asleep soon. Asleep soon. In today's video, we're going to be continuing the book we were reading. So, let us begin. Jack straightened to his full height and glared down at his uncle with such ferocity, I thought he might punch him. She's frightened. I was the one who had to do your dirty work, and now she's frightened of me. Forgive me if I find the need to offer comfort. Langley didn't take his hard gaze off his nephew, and I got the feeling if he could stand, he would square up to Jack and use his bulk to intimidate. Jack, perhaps now is not the time, Sylvia said in a sing-song voice. She came up beside him and looped her arm through his. Despite the placating tone of her voice, I could tell she was using all her strength to drag Jack away. Finally, with a flare of his nostrils, Jack obliged her. I immediately felt less secure, and when I felt afraid, I talked. Then what do you want with me? If you mean me no harm, why am I here? Langley turned his steely gray gaze on me. I'd heard you were clever. I bristled. Heard from whom? Never mind that. You're here not because of who you are, but what you are. My heartbeat slowed. My cheeks cooled. I sat very still and stared at Langley, although I didn't really see him. I'd known it all along, but I'd not wanted to admit it. I'd been kidnapped because they thought I was Vi, and Vi could start fires with her mind. I swallowed hard. Langley was going to be in for a rude shock when he discovered I couldn't set anything alight without matches. And once he did, then what? But why do you want someone who can start fires? I asked. To train you. Pardon. Jack is going to teach you to use your power at will and control it. I held up my hands, closed my eyes. My breath seemed unnaturally loud in my ears. One thing at a time. For what purpose are you training me? You cannot go about setting things ablaze willy-nilly. You'll never be able to function in the real world if you don't learn to control it. We're going to help you, Violet. The sooner you see that, the sooner you'll accept your situation here. My situation being that I am prisoner at Frankenham. Leaving would be foolish, and I've already established that you're a clever girl. Clever people can do foolish things. He gave a slight nod. I advise you against trying to leave. I know your father kept you confined to the attic, but you'll have more freedom here. He was worried I was at fire to something, and we lacked nothing. How do you know? Did you see what he gave your younger sister? Did you? His words would have hurt if I really were Lady Violet Jameson. I knew she loved her father, despite everything. I think she secretly hoped he would remove her from the attic one day and introduce her to society. She'd been bitterly disappointed scowled at him. I believe Violet has one last question to ask me. I do, I said. Why is Jack going to be the one to train me? Do you care to answer this? Langley pointed his chin at his nephew. Perhaps she shouldn't be overwhelmed just yet, Jack said. Come now, I know you're desperate to tell her. August, don't. It's too soon. I'm ordering you to tell her. Jack stretched his fingers, then closed them into fists. Very well. He turned to me, and I was shocked at the feverish color of his green eyes, the mocking set of his mouth. We're two of a kind, you and I, Lady Violet. As far as I know, we're the only two fire starters in England, perhaps the world. I don't know why or how, but we just is. We should join a travelin' sideshow, or perhaps not travelin'. We could stay put. Make the customers come to us, fleece 'em of every penny while we set their rats on fire. That's enough, Jack. Langley warned. Be famous, we would, Jack went on, his chest rising and falling with his heart breathing. So what you think, Vi? I said. Enough. Jack, Sylvia whispered. She hesitantly reached for his hand, but when their fingers touched, she sprang back with a yelp. A spark shot from Jack's fingertip, but Sylvia stamped on it before it could scorch the rug. I rose out of the chair and stared at Jack. I couldn't take my eyes off him. I'd never witnessed Vi during one of her episodes, my narcolepsy having shielded me from that, and to see actual sparks erupt from his bare skin was incredible. Not frightening, but curiously thrilling. It wasn't the only thing that shocked me. His outburst had been unexpected, but not nearly as much as his accent. It had changed from the cultured tones of a gentleman to something altogether different. Something I'd never heard before, but had read about in books. Indeed, some of the characters in Mr. Dickens' novels spoke like that in my head when I read their dialogue. It was only the poor characters, however, laborers, beggars, thieves, murderers, and street urchins. Which category did Jack Langley fit into? Are you all right? Sylvia asked him. Jack nodded without taking his gaze off me. He seemed calm, his face expressionless. It was his eyes that gave away his true feelings. They were as wild as a stormy sea. But just before he turned away, I caught a glimpse of something else in their depths, something that made him look as lost as a little boy. He strode out of the room, leaving the door open. Well, Sylvia huffed. Is there anything else, Uncle? Langley lifted a hand in a dismissive gesture. Jack knows what to do. He spoke heavily as if the little scene had sapped his strength. The window bollard. The servant wheeled him towards the window and positioned the chair so that Langley could see out. Shall we dine, Violet? Sylvia asked, smiling like did she ever not smile? I wanted to make a quip to prove that I was unaffected by everything I'd seen and heard, but nothing came to mind. I allowed Sylvia to lead me down the stairs to the dining room. The long table was set for 3, but the third place was empty. A footman brought in a soup tureen and set it on the sideboard. He hovered until Sylvia asked him to serve. Jack will come when he's ready, she said, as the footman ladled soup into her bowl. His accent changed up there, I said. Why is that? It happens It's when he's upset. She glanced at the door, then at the footman. He'd paused in his duties and stared at me. You mustn't speak of it to him, she went on. He doesn't like talking about it. First your uncle and his legs, and now Jack and his accent. Is there anything in this house that we can discuss? The weather, said Jack, striding in. He looked and sounded quite composed again. He sat at the vacant seat opposite us. I'm starving. You must be too, Violet. We both missed our luncheon today. It seemed he was going to pretend nothing untoward had happened in his uncle's room. I'm not feeling particularly hungry. I waved away the second ladle of soup. It's amazing what being abducted can do to one's appetite. I highly recommend it for ladies wishing to shrink their waists. Your waist is already tiny, Sylvia said. I think Violet was being sarcastic, Jack said. I know that. Forgive me if I'd preferred to gloss over the nastier events of the day while I'm eating. Speaking of which, I'm sorry to say that your ridicule couldn't be saved, Syl. That's quite all right. I didn't like it anymore anyway. She suddenly brightened. Perhaps we can go shopping together to buy a new one, she said to me. I was so taken aback that I spilled some soup on the tablecloth. I don't think that's a good idea, Jack said. But Uncle August told me she's free to come and go. I witnessed a silent exchange between cousins as they communicated without words. Jack's glare was quite stern, and Sylvia's smile changed from genuinely hopeful to falsely polite. She was not the sort who can hide her feelings. Perhaps we'll go when you've settled in, she said to me, in a week or more. She won't have time before then anyway, Jack said. Training begins tomorrow. I can't spare her. Ah, yes, training, I said. Your uncle stated that I was brought here so that you can help me learn to control my affliction. It's not an affliction, Sylvia said. Her response sounded automatic, as if she were repeating something often said. I grunted. That's easy for you to say. As to the training, forgive me if I don't believe Mr. Langley. Sylvia blinked her wide blue eyes. Why wouldn't you believe him? Because I was kidnapped. I don't understand. You knew I lived in the attic, which meant Lord Wade, my father, obviously cared little for me. It would also be a natural supposition that I was eager to leave the attic. My removal to your uncle's care could have gone ahead without this fuss if you'd simply asked to have me. All of which implies that your reasons are less pure and you didn't wish to explain them to Lord Wade. Sylvia continued to stare at me, her spoon dropping over her bowl, the soup forgotten. You make a lot of assumptions, Jack said. What does Langley really want with me, I asked. Jack returned to his soup, and it was left to Sylvia to answer. Uncle August truly does want to help you. She glanced at Jack, then back at me. He's not a bad man. I said nothing to that, and neither did Jack. The irony was, if they'd gone about the task as I'd suggested and asked Lord Wade's permission, they would have gotten the correct Violet Jameson. As it was, they had an impostor, and this impostor was going to have to lie convincingly to make Jack believe she had the power to start fires. Either that or avoid lying altogether and simply escape. And this is where we will stop for today's video. We are on chapter 4 of this book. I hope you all have enjoyed this reading. If you have not already subscribed to our channel, I would love it if you did and joined our little family here in this corner of the internet. Don't forget to also like the video if you have any comments or questions or